Okay, so we're diving deep today into all these recent legal changes.
Yeah,
Honestly, it feels like every day there's something new to try and wrap your head around.
yeah,
Like you need a law degree just to understand what's going on.
definitely. And it can be tough to sort through it all.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So today we're really going to try and break down
Yeah,
the why behind these big changes and
absolutely.
what they really mean for people like you and me.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking everything from like how your data is protected online
Right?
to changes in like the workplace,
Uh-huh.
even stuff about the environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, let's maybe start with what are some of the biggest legal shifts you've
Yeah.
been seeing? Like what's really caught your eye?
Well, I think over the past year, there's been a real push to kind of update the legal systems
Yeah.
to match all the challenges we're facing now.
Right.
Like things have changed so much,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely.
And I think a good example of that is this new law about protecting consumer data
Oh, yeah.
from being misused by companies,
Okay.
because it used to be like the Wild West out there.
Right.
Like companies could just kind of do whatever they wanted with your info.
It's like they had free reign.
Yeah. And this new law is really about putting you in control,
Makes sense.
like giving you more say over your personal information.
Which is so important.
Yeah,
We hear about data breaches all the time.
all the time.
So it makes sense that they're trying to rein that in a little.
Totally. And it shows that like society is starting to see data as this like really valuable asset
Right.
that needs protecting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what about the world of work?
Okay.
Have there been any big legal shakeups there?
Oh, for sure. Like one of the most significant things has been this new legislation to increase minimum wage
Yeah, okay.
and to kind of bolster workers' rights in general.
Interesting.
And the idea there is to make sure that people are earning a living wage
Right.
and that they're not being taken advantage of.
So, if we could dive into those employment laws a bit more,
Yeah.
what's the nitty-gritty?
Okay.
What does this actually mean for businesses
Yeah.
and employees?
So basically, businesses now have to follow stricter guidelines,
Okay.
about things like wages and workplace safety.
Uh-huh.
And that might mean some increased costs for them as they adapt.
That makes sense.
But on the flip side, for employees, this could lead to like better job security,
Okay.
improved working conditions, even higher job satisfaction.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's kind of a win-win in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about these data privacy regulations? We
Right.
talked about them a little bit before.
Yeah.
How are they going to actually affect our day-to-day digital lives?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that companies can't just collect and use your data willy-nilly anymore.
Okay.
There are much stricter rules in place.
Got it.
So it's really about giving you more control over your information.
That's great.
Like you get to decide who has access to it and how they use it.
I like that.
And for businesses, this means they really need to revamp how they handle data.
Right.
They need to make sure they're complying with these new regulations.
Makes sense.
Otherwise, they could face some serious consequences.
So, switching gears a bit, what about the environment?
Okay.
Have there been any big legal developments in that area?
Yeah, definitely. Like there's a big focus now on reducing emissions,
Uh-huh.
and there are stricter penalties for companies that pollute.
Wow.
So companies are being held more accountable for their environmental impact.
That's good.
Yeah. And while this might mean some industries have to invest in like cleaner tech,
Right.
which could increase their costs.
Makes sense.
In the long run, it's all about promoting sustainability.
So it's interesting to think about how different groups are reacting to these changes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What are you hearing from businesses?
Well, I think some business owners are understandably concerned about the increased costs of complying with all these new regulations.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think a lot of them recognize that these rules can actually create a more level playing field,
Interesting.
and promote fair practices across the board.
Okay. And what about employees?
Well, employees are generally pretty happy about the changes,
Okay.
especially those related to like wages and working conditions,
Makes sense.
because those things directly impact their well-being,
Right.
and their quality of life.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what about legal experts?
Oh, they're an interesting bunch.
Yeah.
I think most legal experts agree that these laws are necessary,
Yeah.
to address all the challenges we're facing today.
Right.
But they also emphasize that enforcement is key.
Yeah.
Like if these laws aren't properly enforced,
Okay.
they're not going to be very effective.
That makes sense.
Well-
So what are some of the challenges that you see with implementing all these new legal frameworks?
Well, I think one big challenge is making sure everyone is on board, and that all businesses are complying with the new rules.
Right.
And that can be particularly tough for smaller businesses
Yeah.
who might not have the resources to easily adapt.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then there's also that balance, right?
That
Between
balance.
promoting economic growth
Right.
and implementing necessary regulations.
Yeah, that's a constant tension, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, how do you find that sweet spot?
It's a tough one for sure.
So looking ahead, do you think these laws are going to stay the same, or should we expect them to change?
Honestly, I think change is inevitable.
Yeah.
Laws are rarely set in stone.
Right.
They tend to evolve over time as we see how they work in practice
Mm-hmm.
and as new challenges pop up.
Okay.
So I definitely think we'll see some adjustments and refinements down the line.
So if we had to distill all of this down to one key takeaway,
Okay.
what would it be?
I think the main thing is that these legal changes are happening
Right.
and they're affecting everyone.
Right.
So it's important to stay informed and to be ready to adapt, whether you're an individual or a business.
Makes sense. Okay, so here's something to ponder.
Okay.
As you're thinking about this interplay between regulation and economic growth,
Right.
what do you think is going to be the most critical factor in determining whether these legal changes are actually successful in the long run?
That's a great question.
It's something to think about for sure.
Hmm.
Well, thanks for diving deep with me today.
My pleasure.
It's been a really insightful conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely learned a lot.
You too.
And hopefully our listeners did as well.
I hope so.